RPG Maker tip number 1. When using the built-in character creator, be sure if you find a character you're going to use for your game multiple times, hit this button. Save your character file as... Then, if you need to edit that character later, load... And there you go. You can make more facial expressions. You could change the color of their hair. Maybe they got older. Just make sure that you hit save again when you're done. Either overwrite the same file or create a new file if you want to then reference that one in the future and have both to be able to edit at a later date. Enjoy. Quick RPG Maker tip number 2. Whenever you're editing the database, if you press the F4 key and F5 key, you can go up and down respectively. So let's say you realize that your economy is completely effed, as one does when they create an RPG Maker game. Go in, let's change it up to 200, F5 to the next one, change it up to 500, F5 to the next one, change it up to 750. As you can see, whatever field you hit F5 or F4 on, that is the field that it will be in for the next item. So if you're in description and you hit F5, it goes down to description. If you're in price, you hit F5, it goes down to price, so on and so forth. Enjoy. RPG Maker tip number 3. This reward dialog looks a little vanilla. Let's fix that. On your event screen, edit the text. In order to insert an icon, use \I and then create a bracket. Inside the bracket, right click, insert icon index. Then choose your icon. We'll choose the longsword. Looks good. There's one more thing we could change. Let's change the color of the longsword text. In order to change color, do \C and then create more brackets. Inside the bracket, right click, go to insert color index and choose your color. \C and then 0 to take it back to white. Otherwise, if you leave it this way, all your text will be purple. Now that we've added a color change that takes it back to 0, bam, there. I think that looks much better. Enjoy. RPG Maker tip number 4. RPG Maker MZ allows you to have players follow you when they're in your party. This looks a little weird. This character who wants nothing to do with this conversation, and this character who's talking in this direction. Let's fix that. You can turn the option off altogether, but I like having players follow you. Create some blank events and name them after the characters that are not your main character. Then go into the event that's going to trigger the cutscene, right click and insert change player followers. Turn it to off. Personally, I like to have the scene fade out, turn the followers off, and then fade back in. A nice little cutscene transition. Remember these blank events we created earlier and named after our party members? Now we can use set movement route to change our party member event graphics. Make sure during the movement route you have them face the direction that you want them to be during the cutscene. Do this for each party member event. Since you have the party members now tied to the events, you can control them individually as well. Add a little more emotion to your dialogue. Enjoy! RPG Maker tip number 5. Do you ever get tired of clicking through maps to find where you have certain events? For instance, I have items here, an item here, item here. It's everywhere. It's everywhere all over the place. Instead of going to each map, click Tools, Event Searcher. In the Event Searcher, you can search for any event name and it will pull up every map that has that event on it. So we'll search item, and it shows me all the places I have items. You can use this to quickly edit any event that you need to on any map without having to click through all these different maps. Enjoy! RPG Maker tip number 6. We're going to keep this one simple. If something goes horribly wrong with your event scripting, for instance, we have 2 characters with green hair on the screen here, or if you just need to check something further up, but you have obstacles in your way, kind of like these, just hold Control, and you can walk through anything that's normally impassable. That's a different type of wall hack. Enjoy. RPG Maker tip number 7. If you have a structure like this that you've spent a lot of time working on and you don't really want to rebuild it all over again, just right click and drag, bring it over to where you want to put it. And there you go. This is essentially an eyedropper or a copy tool, and you can use it to save yourself a little bit of time. Enjoy. RPG Maker tip number 8. Okay, this one's going to be pretty straightforward. It seems like it should be obvious, but I promise you I've seen it in streams, on YouTube, everywhere. So you can Control X and Control V, copy paste your events, right? But you can just drag the events anywhere you want to go, as long as it's on the same map. Let's say you're in a situation where you coded your events backwards and you need to switch these out. Instead of doing this, copy pasting everything constantly, you could just drag them around as you need. Enjoy. RPG Maker tip number 9. This script call will help you to eliminate a lot of switch bloat. Switch bloat is where you have a switch for literally every little thing that you can think of, and it gets to be hundreds and hundreds of switches long. I don't have a lot of switch bloat in this game yet, but mostly because I've started utilizing this script call. This number is your map ID. Your map ID is right here. This number is your event ID. Your event ID is right here. This letter is the self switch of that event that you would like to change, with this final part being true for on or false for off. Enjoy. RPG Maker tip number 10. If you hit F9 while playtesting your RPG Maker game, you'll bring up the Debug menu. In reality, what this is basically an interface that allows you to turn switches on or off or change variables from this menu here instead of having to wait for them to happen in game. A good use for this would be this gate that I have here, which will not allow the player to move on unless a variable called initial gear hits 3. Initial gear will hit 3 once I examine each of these 3 sparkling objects. I can skip this portion of the playtest by bringing up the debug menu, going to the variable that I want to change, go left to take it down or right to take it up. I need it to be 3 to move past here, so let's set it to 3. We should be able to move right through here. And there you go. This works with variables and switches. So it's very, very useful. You cannot use it for self switches, which we talked about in my last tip video, but it's still incredibly useful. Enjoy.